day. It's you I live for every day. I'll follow after you every day. I'll walk with you, my Lord. It's you I live for every day.
Good evening. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32, Paul is going to encourage us to forgive one another, as God in Christ also forgave you. The issue of forgiveness, I believe, is an incredibly important one. In fact, we're going to spend 2 sessions this week and next week talking about forgiveness. What I want us to do today is explore something that I think is very important. And that's the fact that not everything that happens to us requires forgiveness. Often, what it requires instead would be forbearance. Let me illustrate what I'm talking about.
That's pretty cool, Dan. I didn't know that picture program worked like that.
Yeah, it does.
Hi, Dan.
Dan.
What's his problem?
There are times when people are going to be rude, aggravating, ungrateful, distracting. And while that may rub us wrong and may kind of upset us, that hardly rises to the level of something that we need to forgive. Instead, I believe that we need to follow an urging that Paul has given us previously, which is that we need to forbear with one another. There are a lot of things that happen in our interactions with each other that are just reflective of the fact that we're human beings. And as human beings, we're all flawed. As human beings, we all make mistakes. We all say stupid things. We all, at times, just rub each other wrong. We do. In those times, we don't need to be talking in terms of forgiveness, because I believe forgiveness involves the idea that a sin has taken place. And I would argue that in a whole lot of cases, there's no sin that's taken place. Just somebody was, rude or ungrateful or unthankful or whatever. And in those times, we don't need to forgive them. We need to forbear with them. Let it go and go on. So often, if we're not careful, we can have a tendency to turn molehills into mountains. You've seen people do it. I have too. And take little slights, little things that they ought to just let go, and they dwell on it, and they turn it into some huge deal that is very disruptive to the relationship with this brother or sister, the relationship with God. And we just need to keep things in perspective. I think that's very important. Now, when you start talking about the need to forgive, you are inherently, I believe, talking about sin. You're talking about something that, first of all, I believe, has inculcated in you a sense of betrayal. Somebody has really hurt you. They've really let you down. In fact, I would say along with that sense of betrayal comes a deep sense of hurt. It's like somebody's crushed your heart. We say you feel like your heart's been cut out. And that's absolutely true. You're deeply, deeply wounded by what's happened. And thirdly, the relationship that you had with this individual has been either disrupted or destroyed. But it's not at all what it was. In fact, it's in a kind of crisis situation. Now, when that sense of betrayal, that sense of pain, that destruction of relationship occurs, then sin has occurred. And now it becomes a matter of, how do I go about forgiving this person? Because now we're talking about a very real challenge, a very real crisis. I believe something totally different from the day-to-day interactions that we have with people that may upset us a little bit, but that we just need to let go. This is the kind of thing where we're really going to struggle. Let me illustrate this biblically. In Luke chapter 7, Jesus is invited to the house of Simon the Pharisee. He'll say to Simon, Simon, when I came, you didn't greet me with a kiss. You didn't anoint my head with oil. You didn't give me water to wash my feet. In other words, Simon, you were rude. But Jesus in that context doesn't talk about forgiving Simon. He's reproving Simon because Simon treated him rudely. And Jesus is letting him know that. And there are going to be times when I think we need to let people know, you hurt my feelings. You were rude. But that's not rising to the level of forgiveness. On the other hand, as Jesus hangs on the cross and people stand around him and they're spitting at him and they're mocking him and they're rejoicing in his suffering and his pain, they're glad to see him there. Jesus will then pray, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. It's at a whole nother level. It's an entirely different thing. And so as we talk about the importance of forgiveness and forgiving each other, I want you to keep in mind the difference between something that is thoughtless, that is rude, and something that rises to the level of sin. Something that needs to be forborne and something that needs to be forgiven. They're two entirely different things. But please keep that in mind as we talk about the importance of forgiveness and a relationship with each other. God bless.
Love one another. Serve